Bright Tuty. Every student matters.
Hello dear students, welcome to another lecture, and in this lecture we are going to continue with chapter 5 of class 10th alternative English, which is the ambitious guest. So far we've read about the position at which the house of this family was situated. We read about how the family was a very calm and composed and a satisfied family, but their house was situated at a place which had put them in a risky position almost the entire day. Then we read about the traveler, about this guest who'd come to their house. This guest was although very annoyed with the kind of path that he had crossed, but was very happy when he saw the kind of welcome, the kind of warm welcome that he got from these people. So let us now read further. The frank-hearted stranger had just drawn his chair to the fire when something like a heavy footstep was heard without. Rushing down the steep side of the mountain, as with long and rapid strides and taking such a leap in passing the cottage as to strike the opposite precipice, the family held their breath because they knew the sound, and their guest held his by instinct. So suddenly, when this frank-hearted, when this friendly gentleman, he had, taken his chair, he shifted his chair to the place which was nearer to the fireplace so that he could feel some warmth, he heard a very loud sound from outside. Now this sound has been compared to a heavy footstep coming from nowhere. This was the sound of a heavy rock that had fallen from the mountain. It took several strides, so there was a lot of distance that this mountain, this rock had actually travelled, and then this rock collided with the precipice. As we had read on the earlier page, a precipice was a piece of rock which was placed opposite to their house. So the rock from the mountain had come rolling down and had hit the rock which was exactly opposite to the house of these people, and obviously they were fortunate enough that they did not feel anything because of that. Their house did not get affected. The family held their breath. So obviously when they heard the sound of the rock rolling down, tumbling down, they held their breath. They were just praying in their hearts so that everything would be okay and that the rock would not trouble them. And this traveler, for whom this was a new and strange sound, he held himself by instinct. Instinct, sixth sense. He could just make out that this was a warning sign. This was something dangerous, and so he got wary of it. Now the old mountain has thrown a stone at us. For fear we should forget him, said the landlord, recovering himself. He sometimes nods his head and threatens to come down, but we are old neighbours and agree together pretty well upon the whole. Besides, we have a sure place of refuge hard by, if we should be coming in good earnest. So when that rock actually came down and it paused and it did not affect them, the landlord, that is the owner of that house, he said that, this old mountain that is placed over our head has thrown a stone at us. But we need to just forget that. We do not have to worry about it. He said that there are times when this mountain nods his head. He moves his head and he threatens us. He warns us that I'm going to come down. So you see, this is personification that the author has used. What is personification? Personification is a poetic device in which a non-living thing is treated as a living thing. Nodding the heads and threatening somebody is done by the human beings. I can threaten the other person that if you are going to trouble me, I will not spare you. So this is a threat. A rock, a mountain which is made up of rocks cannot threaten you. It is a non-living thing. But here it has been personified, as the author tells us, that the mountain keeps on threatening us from time to time. He keeps on telling us that I will nod my head, I will move my head and will come down. But he says that I know he won't, because we are old neighbors. It has been a very long time since we have been living here, and we understand each other very well. There is a good connection that we both have with each other. Besides, he said that this refuge, this shelter that we have made for people like you, for the people in need, is obviously something which is done in good earnest, with a good feeling, with a good intention. We have made this place so that we can help the people. So I am sure the mountain will understand that and will not trouble us, will not harm us. Let us now suppose the stranger to have finished his supper of bear's meat, by his natural felicity of manner, to have placed himself on a footing of kindness with the whole family, so that they talked as freely together as if he belonged to their mountain brood. He was of a proud yet gentle spirit, haughty and reserved among the rich and great, but ever ready to stoop his head to the lowly cottage door and be like a brother or son at the poor man's fireside. Now, we've been told something about this man. The writer tells us that, obviously now we are assuming. So since the writer is narrating to us everything, so he says now that that stranger had come to the house, he must have eaten a good supper. His dinner of bear meat must have been through. And now by his natural felicity of manner, the kind of friendly nature that this stranger has, the writer tells us that he must have sat down with the entire family and must be talking to them in such a free manner as if he belongs to the mountain brood, as if he belongs to the group of people who live nearby these people. He was of a proud yet gentle spirit. Now the man has been described, that strange guest has been described, that he was very proud of himself. But despite that, he was gentle, he was very kind, he was haughty. Haughty, somebody who's very arrogant. So he was very arrogant and reserved when he was with the people who were rich and who were great. But the man was also a very nice man. And how do we know? Because the writer tells us that he was always ready to stoop his head. Stoop, bend. So though he was very arrogant when he was with people who were rich and famous and popular, but when he would come to meet somebody who is very poor and would come to a place like this cottage door that he has come to, this was no 5-star hotel, but he was still humble enough to bend his head low and to adjust well with the surroundings. And I believe this is the kind of attitude with which everyone should possess. So, he actually was with these people, and with similar people he always had a great time, and he behaved as if he was somebody's son, he was somebody's brother. So he was very good with those people. In the household of the Notch, he found warmth and simplicity of feeling, the pervading intelligence of New England, and a poetry of native growth, which they had gathered when they little thought of it from the mountain peaks and chasms, and at the very threshold of their romantic and dangerous abode. He had travelled far and alone. His whole life indeed had been a solitary path, for with the lofty caution of his nature he had kept himself apart from those who might otherwise have been his companions. The family, too, though so kind and hospitable, had that consciousness of unity among themselves and separation from the world at large, which in every domestic circle should still keep a holy place where no stranger may intrude. But this evening a prophetic sympathy impelled the refined and educated youth to pour out his heart before the simple mountaineers and constrain them to answer him with the same free confidence. And thus it should have been, it is not the kindred of a common fate a closer tie than that of birth. So, the author then tells us that in this household of the Notch, that is, this cottage that we are talking about, this stranger, this guest, he found warmth. So he found a lot of love and affection in this house, and he found a simplicity of feeling. So there was a very simple, a very innocent kind of an environment in that house, which was obviously in accompaniment with the pervading intelligence of England. It is not that these people who lived in this cottage were dumb, or they were not aware of what was going on around. So they were very well versed with the New England, whatever things were taking place in the progressive cities or in the places which were full of population. So they were very well aware of it. And they had the poetry of the native growth. Apart from that, they had the simplicity. They had the beauty that the poets usually seek for when they talk about people who live in the mountains. You must have experienced it yourself whenever you read some poetry. Chances of a poet writing about a mountain and people living in mountain are always higher as compared to a situation when a poet writes about a city and a busy life and maybe an entrepreneur or a businessman. So there was the same innocence which could be seen in such people. And this they had gathered, this they had managed to gather for themselves because they lived in those mountain peaks, because of the chasms, because of those cracks were there in the house. Their house which had cracks in it made them even more connected to the outer environment. Moreover, the place which seemed to be very romantic was equally dangerous. Abode means house. So this house which seemed to be romantic was dangerous in equal sense. He had travelled far and alone his own life. So this man, he has travelled alone. He had been on a solitary path almost all the time. So, he was a solitary traveller. He would travel alone on places which were not visited by many people. With the lofty caution of his nature, he had kept himself apart from those who might otherwise have been his companions. So this man had been of such a nature that he always wanted to be cautious of everyone whom he met. He did not trust people very easily. And that was the reason why he always preferred to be alone without being in anybody's company. This family as well, although they were very kind with everyone, they were very hospitable, warm and affectionate with everyone, but there was a very strong bond between them, and they never allowed anybody to intrude in their family, never allowed anybody to interfere in their family and to take out their secrets. So you see, here we are talking about two different people, you can say, or group. One is this guest. He has always been alone. He never believed in talking to anyone and to share what was there in his heart. And the other way was this family who, although lived together, but they, despite running a cottage, were never open with an outsider, never open with a stranger who would come their way. But this evening was a prophetic sympathy impelled. So, today, the evening, there was something that was prophesied. Prophetic sympathy impelled, what do we mean by this? So, prophetic, as I told you, is derived from the word prophecy, something that you can foresee, about the future. So, this was a prophetic sympathy, sense of belongingness. Impelled, forced somebody. So there was something that day, there was something in the nature that forced, that compelled both these groups to pour their hearts out. The refined and educated youth, refined, somebody who's so proper, immaculate, perfect. Educated, we all know. So this youth who belonged to altogether a different strata, a different group of society, unlike the mountaineers. So he spoke everything that he had in his heart in front of these simple mountaineers. And these mountaineers also actually were forced to answer to each and every question of this man with equal simplicity, with equal firmness and truth. Is not the kindred of a common fate a closer tie than that of birth? So the writer said that the kindred means the sharers. At times, people who are connected with each other through birth, they also may not share the same fate. You might meet somebody whom you do not know altogether, but you just happen to meet that person and your destiny brings you together without having any other connection with each other. And this is exactly what was about to happen with them. This guest had nothing to do with the family. Neither did the family have any connection with the guest. Yet their fate, their destiny was the same. The secret of the young man's character was a high and abstracted ambition. He could have borne to live an undistinguished life, but not to be forgotten in the grave. Yearning desire had been transformed to hope, and hope, long cherished, had become like certainty, that obscurely as he journeyed down, a glory was to beam on all his pathway, though not perhaps while he was treading it. So, the secret of this young man's character. There was something in the character of this young man that separated him from the others. And what was that? A high and abstracted ambition. He was very ambitious, as the name suggests. He had a vague ambition. He was not clear, because obviously this was the first time when he was going to share his heart with the others. So there were some vague thoughts in his mind. There were some vague aims and desires in his mind that he wanted to accomplish. He could have borne to live an undistinguished life, but not to be forgotten in the grave. He wanted, what was there in the mind of this man was that although he did not have a distinguished life, we all have undistinguished life. Undistinguished means something which is not different from the others. So when you compare your life with that of a prince or a king, obviously their lives are distinguished. They are known throughout their living duration, and they are known even after they die. But this man, he knew that there wasn't anything special about him being alive, but he did not want himself to be forgotten in the grave. He wanted something to happen with him so that he would be remembered after he dies. Yearning desire had been transformed to hope. He had this yearning desire, he had this long desire, this long hope and wish in his heart that changed to hope, and hope, long cherished, had become like certainty that obscurely as he journeyed down, a glory was to beam all his pathway. And the author tells us that the same hope he had continued to cherish in his heart, he has continued to value that in his heart, which had obscurely in a very unclear manner, that kept on following him throughout his life. When you have some ambition in life, that ambition will always stay with you, right? It is always going to accompany you wherever you go. So this ambition was always there with him. It was a glory. It was something that always encouraged him whenever he was traveling somewhere. And while he was even treading it, there were moments when he was just walking and still he had the same desires in his mind. But when posterity should gaze back into the gloom of what was now the present, they would trace the brightness of his footsteps, brightening as meaner glories faded, and confess that a gifted one had passed from his cradle to his tomb with none to recognize him. So he simply wanted that when posterity should gaze back, posterity means when the future generations would look back, he just did not want that people should forget him, that people should think that there was a man who was very bright, who was very sharp, who was very intelligent, who was very gifted. He passed from his cradle to tomb. Cradle is the place where the little ones are put after they are born. You know, the babies are put after they are born. That is a cradle. So he did not want that people should just forget him when his journey starts from a cradle, ends in a tomb, that is when he is buried. He is not recognized by anyone, that nobody remembers him. He just did not want that. As yet, cried the stranger, his cheek glowing and his eyes flashing with enthusiasm. As yet, I have done nothing. Were I to vanish from the earth tomorrow, none would know so much of me as you. That a nameless youth came up at a nightfall from the valley of the Saco, and opened his heart to you in the evening, and passed through the notch by sunrise, and was seen no more. Not a soul would ask, who was he? Whither did the wanderer go? But I cannot die till I have achieved my destiny. Then let death come. I shall have built my monument. So he says that yet, the moment he was talking to these people, his cheek glowing and eye flashing with enthusiasm. So there was a lot of energy. There was a lot of excitement and enthusiasm that could be seen on the face and in the eyes of this man. He said that till now, I agree that I have not done anything special. There isn't anything remarkable that I have done in my life. And if I were to vanish tomorrow, if there was a possibility that tomorrow I would vanish, I would disappear from the earth, I would die from this earth, there would be nobody who would know me as better as you people, because I am sharing my opinions with you. So you people are the only ones who know me so well. There is nobody else. He said that you people also would just remember me. How? That a nameless youth, somebody who does not have a name, because this man has not shared his name with anyone. So a man who did not tell us his name had come to our cottage from the valley of Saco. He spent with us the evening, he told everything about his life to us, and by the sunrise he went away. And we did not meet him again. He said not a soul, there would not even be a single person on this earth who would ask, who was he? Who was that man? Whither did the wanderer go? Wanderer is somebody who just keeps on traveling. Whither? Where? In which direction did that person go? But the man said that I cannot die until I have achieved what I want in my life. And once I have done that, let death come. I am not afraid. I will welcome death and I shall have built my monument. He says, but that will happen only when I do something as great in life that after I die, people build a monument to remember me. There was a continual flow of natural emotion gushing forth amid abstracted reverie, which enabled the family to understand this young man's sentiments, though so foreign from their own. With quick sensibility of the ludicrous, he blushed at the ardor into which he had been betrayed. So the man continued to speak what was there in his heart, and his feelings were so natural that amid that abstracted reverie, abstracted vague reverie, whatever memorable and whatever nostalgic things the man was talking about, obviously that had no connection with these people to whom he was talking to. He did not know these people, neither did the people know him anywhere. So that was a very strange thing that the man was sharing about his ambitions with such people. But somehow the family understood the man and his emotions. Again, despite the fact that they did not relate to it. The emotions, the wishes of this family were totally opposite to what this man was wishing for. Then this man, the guest, obviously he sensed that he was being ludicrous, that he was just talking rubbish. He was talking a little, he was talking things which were ridiculous in nature. And then there was a blush. He started blushing. He felt shy when he remembered about all the people and all the moments in life when he had been betrayed, when we had been cheated by his own destiny, when there could something very much better might have happened with him, but he was cheated, he was betrayed. You laugh at me, said he, taking the eldest daughter's hand and laughing himself. You think my ambition is nonsensical, as if I were to freeze myself to death on the top of Mount Washington, only that people might spy at me from the country round about. And truly that would be a noble pedestal for a man's statue. Then he took the elder daughter's hand into his, that is, he held her hand and said that, are you laughing at me? And he himself started laughing. He said that you must be thinking that my ambition is very nonsensical. It is a very stupid kind of an ambition that I have. As if I were to freeze myself to death on the top of Mount Washington. So he said that you might be thinking that this is equivalent to the fact that if I want myself to get famous, then I should just go onto the top of Mount Washington and freeze myself to death. Only then the people around the country would actually try to find more about me and I would become popular. And truly that would be a noble pedestal for a man's statue. And he said that I agree. If I do that, if I freeze myself to death on the top of Mount Washington, and if a statue is made for me and that place, I think that is a wonderful spot. I would not mind doing that. It is better to sit here by this fire, answered the girl, blushing, and be comfortable and contented, though nobody thinks about us. The girl, on the other hand, as I told you, is totally opposite in the viewpoints and the opinions. She said that rather than thinking about freezing yourself to death on the top of Mount Washington, I would say that it is better to sit by this fire, to warm yourself, to be comfortable, to be satisfied, to be happy when there is nobody who's thinking about you, nobody is judging you. I think that is a better option rather than making the entire world talk about you. She did not understand that. I suppose, said her father after a bit of musing, there is something natural in what the young man says. And if my mind had been turned that way, I might have felt just the same. It is strange, wife, how his talk has set my head running on things that are pretty certain never to come to pass. Suddenly, the father of this eldest daughter, that is the landowner of this cottage, he started saying, after a bit of musing, thinking. So he thought about it and he said that after thinking, I believe that what this young man is saying is absolutely correct. That if my mind would have gone in that direction, then I think even I would have wanted the same thing. He said that it is so strange, wife. So he was talking to his wife, that his talk has set my head running on things that are pretty certain never to come to pass. He said that after talking to this man, even I have started thinking about those things that I want, but I know will never come true. Perhaps they may, observed the wife. Is the man thinking what he will do when he is a widower? So the wife said that maybe they may, you never know, maybe what you are thinking about can actually come true. And then she asked with the doubt that, are you thinking what you will do when you are a widower? The wife said that, are you thinking what you will do when I die? So the man started crying. He said, no, repelling the idea with reproachful kindness. When I think of your death, Esther, I think of mine too. But I was wishing we had a good farm in Bartlett or Bethlehem or Littleton or some other township round the White Mountains, but not where they could tumble on our heads. I should want to stand well with my neighbors and be called the squire, and sent to the general court for a term or two, for a plain, honest man may do as much good there as a lawyer. And when I should be grown quite an old man and you an old woman, so as not to be long apart, I might die happy enough in my bed and leave you all crying around me. A slate gravestone would suit me as well a marble one, with just my name and age and a verse of hymn and something to let people know that I lived an honest man and died a Christian. So now suddenly you see this man also has started thinking about his ambition, about what he wanted to have in life. When the wife thought that he was thinking about what he will do when she will die, the man repelled this idea. He totally contrasted. He said no to the idea with a lot of kindness. He said, no, I can never think about your death, because when I think about your death, I think about mine too. That is, that if you will die, I would want to die with you myself. What I want is a good farm for myself at Bartlett or Bethlehem or the Littleton, a good township, a good place to live in around the White Mountains. But I don't want to live at a place where you are afraid of the rocks falling over your head. And he says that I want to live in a place where I have neighbors, so that I have a good reputation, I get good respect from my neighbors, I want to have a good status, and I want to be called a squire. So I want to be called the head probably of that neighborhood. And maybe just the way a lawyer can represent a person, a lawyer is capable of representing a person, an honest man like me should also be sent to the general court to talk about what is good or bad. And then he says that when both of us will grow old and I will die, I want you to cry for me. And then a tomb will be made for me. I want to be buried at a place which can either be made of a gravestone, a normal stone, or a marble one will also do for me. But I just want that on the tombstone is that place, over the grave where something is written about that person who has died. So he said that I want my name, my age, along with a verse of hymn, a couple of poetic lines to be written for me, something that would let the people know that I was an honest man, and when I died as a Christian. That is, I died loyal to my religion and to God. So my dear students, I'm going to pause here. What we've read so far is about the ambition of this guest who wanted a monument or a statue made for himself, and this made the father also think about what he wanted, and he wanted to be a squire. He wanted to be the head of a couple of townships maybe around the New England. So now we are going to continue further and see what the other family members had in mind. So I'll see you all now in my next lecture. Thank you.